You're listening to Cars and Coffee, your local home for IndyCar, Formula One, and sports car racing news.
Here on 91.3 WHJE.
And now, here's your host, Nathan Ward. Hello, and welcome to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. We are back with another news show after doing pre-race for the Java House Grand Prix of Arlington last week. Incredibly fun race, surprisingly clean, and overall a massive positive for IndyCar. We will get into that here in a second. But if you're new to the show, make sure to follow us over on Instagram at carsandcoffee_WHJE so you can reach out to us if you want to be a guest on the show, or just keep up with happenings around the station and around the show itself. You can find live show replays on YouTube at TWIRvids, where I upload all of my shows. You can find them there, and you can listen live anywhere around the world at WHJE.com. So, as I mentioned about the IndyCar, the Java House Grand Prix of Arlington, fantastic race. We really didn't have a clear consensus on who was going to be the winner, which for a road and street course in the Alex Palou domination era, that's a good thing. So IndyCar just keeps raking in the wins, honestly, after another super strong weekend at the inaugural Java House Grand Prix of Arlington. For the first time since it welcomed Fox as its broadcaster in 2025, the IndyCar Series has posted 3 consecutive television audiences with an average viewership exceeding 1 million viewers, and none of those races were the Indianapolis 500. Nielsen research confirmed on Tuesday that the average of 1.3 million viewers who watched Andretti Global's Cal Kirkwood run away with the Java House Arlington Grand Prix peaked at 1.5 million viewers from 2 o'clock to 2:15, i.e. the finish of the race. Combined with a further 1.39 million at St. Petersburg and the 1.24 million from Phoenix, Arlington's audience brings the season average to a very stable 1.32 million viewers per race, which is a sizable improvement over the only 891,000 average delivered during the first opening races of 2025. So even with Fox last year, we weren't even close to this, but with Fox last year, we were further than we were with NBC the previous year. So they're continuing to stack gains, and that's awesome. Last year, Fox exceeded 1 million viewers just 4 times outside of the Indy 500, and they might match that total in just the first month of the season if the race at Barber Motorsports Park next week reaches 1 million viewers. This is awesome. This is something that, as IndyCar fans, we have been hoping for years, and we finally have a broadcaster that cares about the sport and puts it out there to new audiences and gets the sport the exposure it deserves, and I think we can finally begin a long-awaited rebuild. NASCAR is in an ever-continuing ratings slide at the moment, and the gap between the Cup Series and the IndyCar Series in terms of average viewership on TV is continuously closing. Or it's consistently shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and eventually, if trends keep going the way they are, they will flip, and IndyCar will be more popular than Cup again. Now, in the opening part of the season, IndyCar has been continuously more popular than the second-tier O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, which it had struggled to beat in ratings over the past few years. That's partially down to the O'Reilly Series moving to the CW, which, at least in my opinion, is a harder-to-access channel because I don't have CW. I have Fubo TV, and Fubo TV doesn't carry CW for some reason. So I can't watch the races. But that might be a factor in the fact that it might be a factor in the situation where IndyCar has passed the O'Reilly Series in viewership consistently. So overall, super positive, and that 1.3 million number is with the crowd that we had at Arlington, and I haven't seen a solid number. I don't believe they have released a crowd number for this past weekend, but every single grandstand I saw looked like it was filled to the brim. All the general admission space was teeming with people. That is the most people I have ever seen at a street course race. And again, as I said during the pre-race last week, it is probably the most hype I have ever seen for a street course race in IndyCar outside of Long Beach. It was crazy. I don't think I don't think that IndyCar could have fathomed the amount of success this event had before it happened. Maybe people behind the scenes who were keeping track of ticket sales, but in the moment, it looked like it was something special. And we got a really funny image of the initial start because the backstretch goes past the Jerry World Walmart. So the backstretch where the start line is on the track goes right by a Walmart, and someone took a photo or a screenshot of the broadcast of all the cars in 2x2 formation going by a Walmart. I love America. Moving on to future news, a couple of new entries have been confirmed for the 110th Indianapolis 500. Elio Castroneves will once again return to the third Meyer-Shank Racing entry in his search for a record-breaking fifth Indianapolis 500 victory. Takuma Sato has also been confirmed as the driver of the fourth RLL Honda once again. These two are really, they've been confirmed for a while, but there has been no official announcement. So moving on from Sato, that moves the entry list to 31 cars. It leaves Andretti Global as a bit of an odd one out. Multiple people have apparently called Andretti and have received the news that the seat is taken. I imagine that seat's taken by Colton Herta. I can't see anyone taking that seat unless they have some serious money. But assuming there's no change coming with Andretti's plan, the IndyCar Series needs to find one more car to complete its minimum number. The Series and Chevrolet continue to hope for Prema to make a comeback and are believed to be holding off on making any real decisions on who will receive the brand's engines until the Prema situation has reached a conclusion. But I don't know. During the ongoing period, other teams have been kind of badgering Chevy about whether Prema will take one Chevy lease or no Chevy leases, or I don't know. We haven't heard from Prema at all. So it's a real gray area. I wouldn't be surprised if Prema is able to cobble together sponsorship to run at least one car, and if they do run one car, I hear it's going to be for Callum Ilott and not Robert Schwartzman, which I find really weird considering Robert Schwartzman, the pole sitter for last year's Indy 500, will be without a ride for this season almost certainly. But one of these motors will probably be deployed to either a third AJ Foyt entry, a third Juncos Hollinger entry. Catherine Legg is another driver that has been had her name thrown around for a seat. There are some perennials that have always had their names kind of in the hat for one of these, I don't know to call them lottery seats, like Catherine Legg, Stephen Wilson. They're always kind of around hoping for a seat to open up. Out of that pool, the most likely driver to land a seat is Catherine Legg. So in theory, if those two Chevy engine leases are redistributed and Honda is willing to bring in another engine lease for Catherine Legg, because last time they did that, it did bring in quite a lot of publicity for the 2024 500 for that pink elf cosmetics car. I wouldn't be surprised if either Honda or Chevy throw in another engine lease because Catherine Legg is incredibly popular. That's where we stand right now. I imagine it's not going to be like 2022 where it takes forever to hit 33 entries and we're not even sure if we're going to have 33 entries until like 2 weeks before the 500. I think we have 33 or 34 entries at the open test. Certainly 33. I wouldn't be surprised if Prema is able to cobble together a car. I wouldn't be surprised if Catherine Legg lands a seat. And if Prema can't cobble together any cars, can't find any money whatsoever, I think that Chevy will gladly redistribute those two engine leases to Juncos or Foyt or one of these other teams that has money or is willing to put someone like Catherine Legg or Stephen Wilson in a car. So that's kind of our IndyCar news roundup for the week. When we come back, I found a very awesome NASCAR stock car that's up for sale on racecarsforyou.com. That is this week's racecarsforyou.com featured listing. We will talk about that when we come back here on Cars and Coffee, here on 91.3 WHJE. Here's Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. Don't go away. Cars and Coffee will be right back on 91.3 WHJE. Hi, if you're listening to this, that means you're listening to a replay of today's show. I just want to say thank you for listening and make sure to subscribe to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss another episode of Cars and Coffee, along with highlights from your favorite motorsport series. If you're listening on the WHJE website, go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. If you're listening to this on YouTube, just click the button below. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get back to the show. We now return to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. Hello and welcome back to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. Now is your chance to own a piece of NASCAR history. Hendrick Motorsports has put up for sale a car that is, it's not a show car, it is a Jimmy Johnson race-used Hendrick certified car that was restored in-house by Hendrick Motorsports themselves. Chassis 48-590. This car laid the foundation on which Jimmy Johnson won his record-setting 5th consecutive NASCAR Cup Series championship. This car sports the legendary red, white, and blue Power of Pride livery, the paint scheme used during its final race at Martinsville in 2011. All right, but not Martinsville, it was at Richmond. The car has been meticulously restored by the experts at Hendrick. It looks fantastic. Unlike most lookalikes or show cars, it's not a roller. It doesn't have a crate motor. It has an actual, real Hendrick-built R07 Chevrolet NASCAR motor, as it did when it raced. The engine has roughly 750 horsepower, red lines at 9,000 RPM. It has Y-side exit exhausts. While the car makes a great collector's piece, it is fully race prepped and ready to go. It's essentially a turnkey NASCAR Cup car for sale for $145,000. That's a pretty good deal for a actual race car. Just like 2 weeks ago when I talked about the Mark Martin road course car, this is very much in the same vein to that. The car was set up for short tracks and raced primarily at Martinsville, Richmond, New Hampshire, and Phoenix. So, the R07 power plant comes with period correct 4-speed H-pattern transmission. The power is put to the ground using race spec Goodyear tires. And after its restoration, the car was displayed for a time in the Hendrick Motorsports Museum. The car comes with a full rundown at the Hendrick facility of how to take care of the new car from the experts at Hendrick that rebuilt the car. A certificate of authenticity comes with the car, a collection of race day photographs from the races it took part in, and a full history of the car. Free delivery to anywhere in the continental United States. And this car was raced just 5 times during its career. While it did not win a race, it did secure some very solid finishes that helped Jimmy Johnson build his points total for his 5th consecutive Cup championship. Following its restoration again, it spent time in the Hendrick Motorsports Museum. Its career results from, I believe, 6 races? It said 5 races in the listing, except 6 races are listed here. Anyway, It was 9th at Martinsville in the spring of 2010. It was 3rd at Richmond in the fall of 2010. Those were the only 2 times it was used in 2010. The other 4 were used in 2011. It was 3rd in the spring race at Phoenix, 8th at the spring race in Richmond, 5th at New Hampshire, and unfortunately DNF'd at Richmond in the fall of 2011. And that was the car's final race before it was retired and eventually restored by Hendrick themselves. This car is absolutely beautiful. If you're listening on YouTube, I will throw up some photos of the car. It is absolutely gorgeous. If you want to find out how you can listen on YouTube, here's how. Want more racing news and highlights along with full show replays?
241.428 miles an hour.
Head over to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss an episode of Cars and Coffee and highlights from your favorite racing series. Just go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. There's how you can find us on YouTube. When we come back, we review a surprisingly slow-burning 12 hours of Sebring from the second round of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, completing the 36 hours of Florida that opens the American sports car racing season. You're listening to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. Here is Colors by Beck. Don't go away. Cars and Coffee will be right back on 91.3 WHJE. Hi, if you're listening to this, that means you're listening to a replay of today's show. I just want to say thank you for listening and make sure to subscribe to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss another episode of Cars and Coffee, along with highlights from your favorite motorsport series. If you're listening on the WHJE website, go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. If you're listening to this on YouTube, just click the button below. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get back to the show. We now return to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. Welcome back to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. The second round of the 2026 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship went pretty much the same way as the first. Penske dominance in a thrilling down-to-the-wire fight for GTD honors highlighted an amazing 74th running of the 12 Hours of Sebring yesterday. Felipe Nasr, alongside Lauren Heinrich and Julian Andlauer in the number 7 Porsche, claimed overall honors in GTP with the sister number 6 Porsche behind them in second. Nasr was initially ordered to surrender the lead to teammate Kevin Estra in the 6th car, which was on fresher Michelin tires at the time. While the position swap came with 1 hour and 11 minutes to go, Nasr made an aggressive move back on Estra on the inside of turn 17 just 6 minutes later to retake the lead. A late yellow for a spinning GTD Porsche set up a 15-minute dash to the line with Estra playing tail gunner for Nasr to keep the Porsche lead. In LMP2, United Autosports claimed a first-ever 1-2 finish in the WeatherTech Championship led by the number 2 car, Mikkel Jensen, Hunter McElrea, and Phil Fire. In GTD Pro, Thomas Preining wheeled the iconic Grello-liveried 911 Porsche 911 GT3R. It's such an iconic car from pretty much all other corners of the world. They finally brought it over to America, and guess what? It wins in its second race here. They won by 1.4 seconds over the second place number 77 AO Racing Porsche of Harry King, who was entrusted by the team to finish the race in only his second IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship start. The Austrian got around Harry King for the class lead moments before the number 16 Myers Riley Motorsports Ford Mustang slammed the tire wall in turn 2. The most intriguing battle of them all was in GTD, where Antonio Fuoco's number 21 AF Corsa Ferrari was recovering from 3 penalties on the day. The Ferrari hypercar star made a last-lap pass on the number 27 Heart of Racing Team Aston Martin, driven by Tom Gamble, to take the Italian squad to an unlikely class win after so much adversity in just 12 hours. Fuoco shared top honors with teammates Lilo Wadu and Simon Mann, rebounding from contact with fellow Ferrari driver Miguel Molina. They are teammates in the World Endurance Championship, by the way, in the GTD Pro Class Triarci Ferrari. That resulted in a drive-through penalty in the final hour for the 21 car. It came after 2 previous penalties for Fuoco, including contact with the number 64 Ford Mustang of Ben Barker with 3 hours left, and a drive-through for having too many crew over the wall. Post-race, and once again, the number 10 Wayne Taylor Cadillac team cannot catch a break. They had an engine blow with 2 hours left in the Rolex 24 that led them to finish last in GTP. They will finish last again because they were disqualified from their third-place result after a technical infraction was discovered in post-race tech inspection. Not a good week, not a good 2 months, honestly, for the number 10 Wayne Taylor Cadillac. 2 last places to start the year, essentially. Not good. Our race winners, again, the number 7 Porsche Penske Motorsport won overall and in Grand Touring prototype. That car was driven by Felipe Nasr, Julian Andlauer, and Lauren Heinrich. In LMP2, the number 2 car for United Autosports won, driven by Phil Fire, Mikkel Jensen, and Hunter McElrea. GTD Pro, the victor was the number 911 Grello Manti Racing Porsche, driven by Thomas Preining, Klaus Bachler, and Ricardo Feller. In GTD, the number 21 AF Corsa USA Ferrari with Antonio Fuoco, Simon Mann, and Lilo Wadu. Those are your winners for the 74th running of the 12 Hours of Sebring. IMSA also announced a pretty much unchanged 2027 race schedule that will include the second-tier Michelin Pilot Challenge Series returning to Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. The WeatherTech Championship Series, their schedule remains pretty much completely unchanged, but there will be several important anniversaries to celebrate next year in 2027. It will be the 65th running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. It will be the 75th running of the Mobile One 12 Hours of Sebring, and right in the middle will be the 70th anniversary of sports car racing at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So not only is IMSA exciting every year, next year will be a seriously fun year for historic liveries, an amazing opportunity. Like, Penske had an amazing paint job for their 2 Porsches this week to honor Mobile One and their commitment to sponsoring the 12-hour race every year. Those 2 cars, absolutely gorgeous. I wish it was their full-time livery, because I'm not a huge fan of the Penske. I just think there are too many red and white hypercars now between Ferrari, Porsche. Heck, the Peugeots are red now. Like, why? The Toyotas, like, there's too many red, white, and black hypercars. We need some color variation. They added some blue, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm actually kind of glad the Porsches won this time, because the livery is quite beautiful. That's it for the 12 Hours of Sebring. I'm excited for the rest of this year in IMSA. We have to, I think we have to wait another couple months for the next round, which I believe is at Laguna Seca. But that's just how sports car racing works. The schedules are always a bit wonky when it comes to the gaps between races, because they're not necessarily going for TV viewership. They're going for in-person attendance. And speaking of in-person attendance, they broke a record this year for attendance at the 12 Hours of Sebring. So I think IMSA, along with IndyCar, is doing pretty well right now. That's your 12 Hours of Sebring wrap-up for Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. When we come back, I will provide some updates on the schedules of racing series that have had to reschedule their seasons around the conflict in the Middle East. We'll talk about that when we come back. Here's Like a Stone by Audioslave. Don't go away. Cars and Coffee will be right back on 91.3 WHJE. Hi, if you're listening to this, that means you're listening to a replay of today's show. I just want to say thank you for listening, and make sure to subscribe to the This Week in Racing YouTube channel so you never miss another episode of Cars and Coffee, along with highlights from your favorite motorsport series. If you're listening on the WHJE website, go to youtube.com/@TWIRvids. If you're listening to this on YouTube, just click the button below. Thank you so much for listening. Now, let's get back to the show. We now return to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. Welcome back to Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. My name is Nathan Ward. Since the last time I covered the happenings involving motorsport in the Middle East 2 weeks ago, a few key changes have been made to both the Formula One and World Endurance Championship calendars. Starting with Formula One, the 2 upcoming rounds at Bahrain and Jeddah have been canceled due to retaliatory strikes by Iran against almost every nation that borders it. As reported by Racer.com during the Australian Grand Prix weekend, no replacements will be put in place, meaning that the Japanese Grand Prix on March 29th will be the final race before a 5-week break, with the season resuming on May 3rd in Miami. While the official announcement simply states the races will not be replaced in April, most of the motorsport media understands that a rescheduling this season is highly unlikely, and the 2026 Formula One season will therefore be a 22-race calendar. With no replacement races arranged at short notice, F1 is due to take a hit financially on the lost race hosting fees, with the Middle Eastern events among the most lucrative on the calendar. If you're wondering why there have been so many added in the past year, that's why. The cancellation also affects Formula 2, Formula 3, and F1 Academy races that were due to take place as support events during that period. I don't know if those will be rescheduled to other weekends, because there are plenty of open weekends for those Formula 2, Formula 3, and F1 Academy events to be made up. I don't know if that will happen, however. On to the World Endurance Championship. Well, before I move on to the World Endurance Championship, I'm going to talk about F1, because with this 5-week break, hopefully, post-Japanese Grand Prix, we can figure out why these cars don't car. So, the way... I don't even know how to explain what super clipping is, but drivers are doing it to conserve battery on the straightaways, because if they don't, they dump their entire battery charge on one tiny little straightaway. So this is extremely prevalent on the backstretch at Shanghai, which is, I think, nearly a mile long. That backstretch, You go from, I want to say 300 kilometers an hour from the exit of turn 13, the sweeping right-hander that goes onto the straightaway, to the hairpin at turn 14 at the end of the straightaway. You drop down to like 150 kilometers an hour, which is 96 miles an hour. You're going less than 100 miles an hour at the end of the straight before you brake. That is pre-braking. The fact that they are clipping to save the battery is doing all the braking for them across the straight and dropping lap times. And it's creating some racing, but it's also creating artificial racing, and the drivers do not like artificial racing, especially like someone like Max Verstappen. I get the impression that he approves of no racing more than he does completely artificial passing made by the fact that the batteries don't last more than 5 seconds. They're essentially IndyCar hybrids, how long they last. But hopefully this 5-week break in the season before we resume in Miami on May 3rd is gonna hopefully provide some time to fix whatever is wrong with these cars. On to the World Endurance Championship, which postponed the season opening Qatar 1812 at the onset of the war. They have also officially moved all of the prologue ceremonies and the official preseason test to the Tuesday before the new opening round of the season at Imola in Italy. At the time of the announcement, it was slated that the event would be moved, that the Qatar event would be moved to the second half of the season, but it has now been slotted in for October 22nd through the 24th, 2 weeks before the planned season finale at the Bahrain International Circuit. Of course, those two events might still be subject to change depending on the course of events in Iran. Again, super duper fluid situation, and we're not gonna know if these events will go off without a hitch until either a resolution to this conflict is found or it's still going on by the time they get there and they still cancel them anyway. So we are not out of the woods yet, and I don't think we will truly know until we get to those events. But it's promising that the FIA believes that this will be over by November. So that's where we are right now. I don't really know where to go from here, but that is all I have for this week's episode of Cars and Coffee. Next week, for the IndyCar round at Barber Motorsports Park, we will be back to doing IndyCar exclusive pre-race coverage before the green flag in Birmingham, Alabama. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Cars and Coffee here on 91.3 WHJE. We will be back next week, same time, Sunday morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, but for IndyCar pre-race at Barber Motorsports Park, thank you for listening. Here's Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine.